Hello, welcome to the online edition of CMIS422 Information Security. I'm your host, Dr. Tim Jacks. I don't know why I feel the need to say that, but I'm starting to feel like a radio show host now with my professional backdrop and my professional mic situation, and I'm working on the lighting situation. Anything I can do to make this experience a little more pleasant for everybody. So we need to wrap up Chapter 12 today, and first, another hat, another concert t-shirt, and the hat today is, I don't know if you can see the logo or not. It says Asheville on there, Asheville, North Carolina. So I'm wearing this just to honor my friends in North Carolina that I do wargaming with, and, just a shout out to them. And then the concert t-shirt today is the classic rock band Rush. This is from their Clockwork Angels tour, which sadly was their last tour. I got to see them in, I think it was 2015, and last year Neil Peart, their drummer who wrote all their lyrics, passed away, sadly. But I'm grateful that I got to see them live. They're an awesome band, and check them out if you've never heard of Rush. Oh wow. Go check them out. Or maybe you have already checked them out and like, you know what, I just don't like Eddie Lee's high, reedy, screeching voice. Some people love it, some people hate it, but the musicianship is spectacular. And I am not going to show a clip of Rush in concert because I feel like I've pushed things to the limit with the YouTube gods, and they may have some kind of 3 strikes and you're out policy, and I don't want to get my channel shut down. So maybe I'll include some Rush links in the Blackboard post for you to look at, just for fun. I'm also trying out a new mouse today. Normally I use a trackball, and my hand has been getting really sore just because, spending all day long in front of the computer now, because that's life. I don't know if you've ever tried one of these kind of it's just a little handheld thing that you kind of roll with your thumb and click on a trigger and then buttons up top. And so if you see me fumbling around, looking down, that's what I'm trying to still figure out. But it's pretty cool. Feels nice. Some quick announcements. Our live session will be April 20th at noon, our regular class time. And then I'll open up the exam on that Wednesday, the 22nd. I think I forgot to give you a reminder in the last video that Deliverable 4 was due on 4/15, which is today when I'm recording this. If for some reason you have not done the practice exam for Security Pro, please go ahead and do it. It's not too late. Go ahead and, block out some time. I don't care what you score on the practice exam. I just need you to take the practice exam so you know what you need to bone up on for the actual certification exam. Homework 7 is another test out assignment on April 20th. Otherwise, just keep up. You're in the home stretch. End of this month is the end of this semester, and wow, what a semester it's been. I will not forget this for the rest of my life. Okay, here's where we left off. We covered the 13 areas of security management that are based on the NIST model of security management. And in addition to just kind of knowing the 13 areas of security management, I was trying to push you to think in terms of there are at least 13 areas of jobs in a career in cybersecurity. So please keep that in mind as we move forward. So, for example, if you're a hyper technical sort of person, then interconnecting systems and performance metrics and incident response, maybe some change management is your area. If you're more of a business focus, working on accreditation, assessment, certification, security planning, capital planning, InfoSec governance is for you. If you're more of a developer mindset, maybe some DevOps, SDLC, actually more agile for DevOps. But if you're kind of a right brain creative person, think about CETA. We need people that are good at animation and making funny videos that are going to engage people to educate them on best practices for security, how not to succumb to phishing attempts and ransomware and whatnot. wow, those are some big letters. Technology changes. This is part of what's difficult about teaching any CMIS class is the rug gets pulled out from under our feet every week as new technology comes out, new versions of software, new versions of hardware, entire new categories of hardware change on a weekly basis in this career field. Now that's what might put some people off, but people that are drawn to a career in IT, that's what we like about IT. It's always changing. I would just point out to you that the principles we're talking about, the security management principles, don't. That's what's cool about studying information security at a broad business level. So all of these that we talked about, we're still going to be talking about those in 10 years. That's kind of awesome. Maybe not SDLC. That might be getting phased out. Although it'll take years and years and years for SDLC to completely go away. Agile as a development methodology is picking up steam. So technology changes. Management of technology does not. Management of technology is the focus of a CMIS degree or specialization, depending on which one you're doing. And now we need to switch to the second topic in Chapter 12, which is going to overlap with the 13 areas. Now we're going to talk about 5 areas of security maintenance. And here's how I think about it, that the 13 processes are at a high level, kind of what needs to be managed. The 5 systems we're getting ready to talk about are a little more detailed, a little more technical in terms of how we're going to maintain those systems, but there are a lot of maintenance issues in the 13 management processes. There's a lot of some management in the 5 systems of maintenance. There are monitoring aspects to both. That's what makes this chapter a little confusing, but if I can just kind of get you to zone in on the 13 and the 5, this is the NIST way of thinking about it. Is it the best way of thinking about it? No, probably not. It's a way. It's the federal government's way, and especially if you're getting a job at Scott Air Force Base or anything related to military, government, public sector, this is the way you need to get used to. So what are these 5 areas of maintenance of which you speak, Uncle Tim? These are, number 1, external monitoring. Number 2, internal monitoring. Number 3, planning and risk assessment. Number 4, vulnerability assessment and remediation. Number 5, readiness and review. A lot of this is going to sound familiar from the 13 areas. I tend to think of management as being more strategic, and these maintenance activities are a little more operational, maybe tactical, but more operational in terms of day-to-day. That's not a hard and fast division. This is just the way I think about it. Number 1, monitoring the external, the outside environment, outside of your organization. What's new, what's emerging, collecting intelligence from data sources, and then presenting that material to organizational decision makers. Now, I have tried throughout the semester, and I feel like I haven't done a good job with this, of trying to get you into a good habit of monitoring the external environment. That's what you've been doing all semester. What you're supposed to be doing all semester with your RSS feed. You're monitoring the external environment. And then in class, you would have to present that information in a way that makes sense to business leaders, to decision makers at a high level. What's the business impact? What's the dollar amount? What's the amount of data lost? What's the market share impact? That's why this is a skill I was trying to get you to practice all semester. So it's not too late. Again, please throw some news articles out in Teams so we can let's make a last minute push at the end of the semester to populate Teams with some security news. Exactly the same thing that we were doing in class. That's what I want you to do in Teams. And just expanding on this idea, turning data into information. This is a kind of a philosophical concept from 342, that data is just raw text and numbers. Information is data that is made meaningful for human beings. And then information gets transformed into knowledge when decision makers are able to make decisions based on accurate information, which is based on accurate data. That's the pyramid of knowledge from 342. So this external intelligence comes from where? Well, you have a bunch of sites already. Sometimes you have to pay for them. Sometimes they're membership sites. There are lots of examples of these. I think later on we'll mention FireEye is a really good one. There's some free resources on FireEye, but it's also a membership-based thing. Gartner Group, of course, is a membership-based source of knowledge. There are a lot of them out there, and the idea is to pick the right ones that are curating knowledge at a level that is helpful for your organization. Oh, here we go. Yeah, collecting raw intelligence, filtering for relevance. Curating is what museums do, but it's also what we do with information to curate information. This is the cure for information overload, right? The idea is to pick and choose the things that are meaningful for you, for your team, for your department, for your business. And an example of this would be my wife gets these, well, it's just a kind of a status update newsletter. It's just a business report that comes out once a week that's internally curated by people on the U.S. Bank Security Information Security team that collect all the intelligence of the week and then put it into business terms for U.S. Bank managers and directors and VPs and business leaders. This is a very important role in an organization, and it means you have to be able to do good business writing, which is why I keep emphasizing writing in all of my classes. Let me see if I can zoom in on this Forrester picture, though, because I think this is helpful. Okay, this is a graphic from Forrester that I've zoomed in on. Notice that they're kind of stealing a line from Gartner Group in their Magic Quadrant, but they're coming up with this wave quadrant system. And these are external threat intelligence services, so membership services. There'll be some names on here that you recognize, some that you may not. Kaspersky, obviously, Accenture, Intel, kind of interesting. PricewaterhouseCoopers, big. CrowdStrike, very big, especially for cloud-based security. But FireEye tends to hold this uppermost spot. That's why I kind of note them for your attention. Number two, monitoring the internal environment. So you need part of the team that's looking outside the organization, part of the team is looking inside the organization, making sure that everything is up to snuff. All your hardware, all your software, all your processes, all your people, that everybody is compliant with all of your security policies that we've been talking on and on about. Your perimeter defense system, your IDPS, your firewall, having an accurate inventory, not just of all the devices and all the software in use, but versions, ensuring that every server is hardened to the latest and greatest. We keep talking about hardening, and then just leading the overall governance process, making sure that everything's compliant and that these processes and procedures are audited on a regular basis to make sure that you're compliant. This is an important part of security maintenance as well. Number three, planning and risk assessment. Sorry, I had to take a little drinky poo. I was losing my voice. Number three, planning and risk assessment. So this involves baking in risk assessment, risk planning into every single project, I would say, start to finish, not just at the beginning and certainly not just at the end, but throughout every stage of a project, and educating the entire organization on thinking about risk. So what's the likelihood and business impact of something bad happening due to a failed control? Or absence of a control. That's what risk is. One way that the book talks about doing this is to kind of bake in your risk assessment into the annual financial planning, budget planning for the year. And if you just kind of get on a regular yearly basis of doing that in exactly the way you do your financial planning, you do your security planning for the year. There are some pros and cons to this. It's good that you're doing it. I'm not sure that annual makes sense. I'm not sure that I don't like this terminology of security projects. I much prefer the idea of security of every project. And there's a subtle difference there. The other issue with planning, especially strategic planning, which we have to do strategic planning, like 5 years or more. The problem, though, is you can't get too strategic. We can't go planning what's going to happen 10 years down the road. Heck, right now with the corona pandemic, we can barely plan what's ahead a couple of weeks down the road. We don't know what we don't know. But that said, you still have to have a plan. I would put it to you that the best practice in project management is to chunk up your projects into no more than a year, for a variety of reasons. Well, right now, people get sick, sadly. People go out of work maybe due to maternity leave, family issues, switching jobs. You might lose people on the project team. So the longer the project lasts, the greater the risk of losing your key personnel on a project. So to make it less than a year, in fact, part of my shtick is there's no such thing as a 12-month project, because you lose December due to holidays. November is gone due to Thanksgiving break. I think all of your projects should wrap up by Halloween, October 31st. And you've got maybe 2 weeks in November, but that's it. You can't get anything done at the end of the year. Oh, and of course you lose January and part of February because people are kind of still doing their planning for the coming year. So really, you've got about 9 months out of the year to effectively do a project. So I don't think there is such a thing as a 12-month project, but just personal opinion. Number 4, vulnerability assessment and remediation. Remember, remediation is doing something about it. So vulnerability assessment, if you just want to think of this as testing, that's fine. You're doing penetration testing from the outside. You're doing internal testing in terms of threat hunting, looking for advanced persistent threats, rootkits on the network, platform by platform, wired, wireless, and of course documenting it all, not just kind of finding something going, ha, found one, but then reporting it in a proper kind of business format, and then making a recommendation of what to do about it. Now, the test-worthy idea here is that there are 4 things you can do about a vulnerability. One is nothing. You might find a vulnerability that is in fact so obscure or just it doesn't matter. It's fine to say our remediation plan is to accept the risk. I'm trying to think of a silly example, but I can't. Just something that doesn't matter at all. There's some piece of software that's not patched, but nobody cares about that software, or it's not connected to the internet and therefore isn't exploitable. So for whatever reason, we might accept the risk. We might choose to transfer the risk to another department, or to the best example of transferring risk is purchasing insurance, like cyber insurance. You're transferring the risk to another group. You can remediate a vulnerability by removing it, by deleting it. It's like, oh, this server is causing a problem, let's just take it offline. That might be a kind of brutal solution, because you might have customers saying, no, I need that server to be online. So you have to work with your customers to see what you can remove. If the latest version of Java is a risk, and it frequently is, you could just uninstall it from every computer. That would remove the risk. Problem solved. Not really. You've still got a business problem, because a lot of applications rely on the Java framework to work. And then the last one is probably the most obvious choice, which is to fix it. You find a problem, fix it, repair it. These are 4 ways of remediating vulnerabilities. Okay, I'm not going to show any more YouTube videos within my videos, just because I feel like YouTube might suspend my whole channel if they catch me a third time doing this. So I'm going to have to ask you to click this in the slides that are on Blackboard, go to this video and watch it, and just see how attractive this would be for security managers. So this is kind of a sales video of a new product that's basically saying, we can solve all of your security problems. And I need you to be a little jaded, a little suspicious, a little skeptical. That's a better word than jaded. Skeptical about such claims that one product, one platform can resolve all of your security problems, because that's simply not the case. In fact, I just realized this is a perfect place to insert a new topic that I was trying to figure out where to put this in the course. This is something the textbook doesn't get into, SIMS, SIEM, Security Information and Event Management Platforms. A SIM is they're getting popular over the last couple of years. The idea is that you've got so many different things to monitor externally and internally. Wouldn't it be great if there was like a single pane of glass, like a dashboard that you can monitor, that kind of everybody would dump all these applications, would dump all their output into a single pane of glass that you can clearly see what's going on across the organization. That might be an example of kind of one tool that it doesn't address all your security concerns, but it might be a good dashboard into all the different products you've got. So this might be the exception to that rule if there's no such thing as one tool. SIMs are going to sell themselves as one tool, but it's just a view into many, many tools. You might want to write down SIEM because this is not in the slides, and it's one that I want you to know. What's more realistic is instead of having one product that handles all 5 areas of maintenance, you're going to have a bunch. Most of them are free, really. This is a good list of security tools here. Let me pull this up. Let's take a look at this list. Number 1 on the list, Wireshark, which I teach you how to use in 468. Metasploit, which we've talked about in this class, is a framework for keeping all the information around all your exploits and vulnerabilities. Nessus is the commercial version of OpenVAS. Aircrack is a free tool on Kali Linux. Snort we talked about in depth. Cane Enable. Backtrack is an older version of Linux similar to Kali. Actually, it's the predecessor to Kali. TCP dump. In fact, that book I told you I was reading about Kevin Mitnick, in the early 90s, TCP dump is what he was using for a lot of things. John the Ripper is a popular password cracking software. I can't believe I'm going through this list with you. Why am I showing you this stuff? But this is all free information that's out there. Oh, there's OpenVAS down there. Nice. A lot of these tools are free. A lot of these are things that if you want a career in cybersecurity, you better be downloading a lot of these and playing with them over the summer if you're trying to get a job in cybersecurity. In fact, don't wait till the summer if you're looking for a job now. Do it now. Especially Linux. I keep talking about Linux. Download a copy of Kali, or better yet, Parrot OS, which I'm a big fan of. All of these tools can pipe their information into a SIM, a security event monitoring tool. And finally, number 5, readiness and review. So regular review, just making sure that they're up to date of your policies, your program review in terms of all your projects, making sure they've all conducted a risk assessment, for example. Rehearsals, war games, tabletop simulations of disasters. Who would ever have predicted, a pandemic as a tabletop exercise? But it's too late to rehearse. We're in the middle of it now, so we have to dig our way out of this. The other biggie I'd add to number 5 is conducting regular audits. I think is a key concern. So all 5 of these areas, kind of different sets of activities and skill sets, 5 different jobs for an organization. These are ongoing. They're not projects. They're services that are ongoing forever and ever and ever. So in a way, this is kind of job security because it's not like you ever have to stop monitoring externally, internally, doing readiness reviews, and any of it. You have to keep doing it. So what are the odds that something bad will happen? That a security threat will penetrate your organization? The odds are 100%. Now, that puts a lot of people off from pursuing a career in information security because the level of adrenaline can get pretty high, I would say, bursty. Nothing. Oh, my God. Now, that also attracts some people as well. Partially because it's job security, you're always going to have a job, and partially because some people crave that kind of excitement of finding a vulnerability and doing something about it. Especially people with more of a paranoid personality seem to do well in cybersecurity. The third and final topic in Chapter 12 is kind of glommed on to the end around digital forensics. And I'm okay with this being a completely separate topic because it's a big, big area. We could do an entire semester on digital forensics. Now, obviously, I can't pull all of that into an overview information security class. What I can do is point you towards the new class that we offer that I've outsourced actually to the Criminal Justice Studies department. They are offering a class now for undergrads on cybercrime. And if you want to pursue the new cybersecurity specialization in CMIS, we will give you credit for taking cybercrime and criminal justice as an elective towards your cybersecurity specialization in the fall. If you're graduating, now, sorry, too late for you, but for on down the road, we'll have the cybersecurity specialization and And I talked to some people that took the cybercrime class for the first time. It's offered over the winter semester every year. They took it this past winter and had very good things to say about it. That it reinforces a lot of topics from this class, but then gets more specific into the legal environment, how law enforcement works in particular. So part of forensics is figuring out what happened after an attack was successful, and gathering evidence to make a case, typically for prosecution. So especially if you're pursuing prosecution, you have to gather your EM, your evidentiary material. This is something that some organizations do more than others because there's kind of two ways to go about it. One is to not worry about gathering evidence, not worry about prosecuting, just fix it and move on with your life. Just find the vulnerability, patch it, move on. Oh, sorry about that, phone ringing. Patch it and then move on with your life. The other option is to go ahead and follow up, pursue, and prosecute, which means you have to follow the chain of evidence, possession of the evidence, so that you can demonstrate in court that the evidence you gathered from your log files, etc., were not changed, modified, that there was a clean handoff from the system administrator to law enforcement, or that law enforcement came in and gathered their own evidence. Obviously, the second method is much more difficult and time-consuming. However, if you're working for, just depends on the industry you're in, especially if you're in the military or government, you may want to pursue and prosecute, but like if you're in manufacturing or retail, you may not care as much. Well, this is a baby version of forensics methodology. Obviously, the cybercrime class will go into much more detail than this, but five steps that just broadly you're going to follow in managing evidence. Number one, figuring out what's relevant. And the legal term here is material. Material evidence is both relevant and makes a difference. It's important. So like a material witness who saw the thing and can provide valid testimony, as opposed to an immaterial witness or immaterial evidence. It's not relevant. Number two, grabbing the evidence without alteration or damage. And this is a very important concept, which I'll give you an example of in a second. Taking steps to assure that evidence is verifiably authentic and unchanged every step of the way as it gets handed off, copied from server to server, organization to organization, doing the analysis of the data and then reporting the findings. And then obviously the last step would be presenting those findings to a judge. Just some practical advice. Forensics is a very specialized area of cybersecurity. It's a cool area if you want to pursue it. The thing is, most organizations aren't big enough to have a full-time dedicated group of forensics analysts on board. So typically companies are going to outsource this to a firm that specializes in this area. So you can either train internally or you can outsource it. And again, it all comes down to the build or buy decision that you do in business over and over and over again. Is it cheaper to do? Is it better to do internally or externally? So do we outsource or do we train our internal people? I would put it to you that Mandiant is probably the biggest name in this area if you're going to outsource to anybody, and you want to make sure you get it right. Mandiant was recently acquired by FireEye. I say recently, in the last 2 years. You'll see Mandiant referred to in a lot of news articles for, we have a problem, we don't know what to do about it. Mandiant will come through and make sure that the chain of evidence is properly followed. I wish we were meeting in person, because what I had planned for this semester is law enforcement, police, our FBI liaison and Secret Service liaison, we're going to come into class and do a demo for you. I'm so sorry, of their new Cellbrite technology. So this is something that they've invested in, SIUE police, and they share their evidence with the city of Edwardsville and Glen Carbon as well. The idea is that you can, Sergeant Terrell, I'm going to get his name wrong. Sorry. Said an interesting thing a year ago, that every crime has a technology element these days, which I think is important to underscore. Part of it's as simple as every criminal has a cell phone, laptop, tablet, PC, something where they're gathering evidence. And so when they're gathering evidence, they can't just keep all these devices indefinitely. What they want to do is connect the phone here to a hard drive, and it does a bit-for-bit exact duplicate image of the cell phone, not just copying all the files, but an exact image, if you're familiar with doing PC images with Ghost or anything, or Acronis or any other one, doing a bit-for-bit image of the phone, the tablet, and then it stores it here, and then it can be analyzed from here. And this is how the police force demonstrates that they haven't changed the evidence in any way, because it locks it into place in its memory. One of the final kind of wrap-up concepts for this chapter, especially around the topic of forensics, is the problem of attribution. And the reason I've kind of blurred out this is a picture of Meredith Burkhart, who's a CMIS alum from years ago. She's now assistant director of the cyber division for the FBI. Yeah, she's a big deal. She came to class a couple of years ago and did a fantastic presentation. I keep trying to get her to come back because her family's still in St. Louis and she comes back to town from time to time. But obviously this semester would not have been good to bring somebody in. But she teaches at a university in D.C. now on cybersecurity. But she said this problem of attribution, of not just attribution isn't determining who did it, but publicly saying who did it. Some businesses care about this, some don't. Obviously, law enforcement cares very much about attribution. Her kind of inside view on cyber division for FBI is frequently they know exactly who did it, who committed the cybercrime, what country, for example, committed it. And frequently they can't attribute that crime in public because it's a political issue. So they have to get buy-in from really the executive branch if they want to start pointing fingers internationally, because it could start an incident. So a lot of times we know who's doing it. Remember the the Big Four we talked about at the beginning of the semester. Meredith is an awesome contact. If you wanted to reach out to her, Meredith Burkhart on LinkedIn, if you're interested in cybersecurity, she would probably connect with you. If you want to pursue that relationship, she'd be a good source of information and a good contact for you. And another video I'm not going to show you, but just kind of some free forensics tools. Again, free is the theme. Don't pay for security tools if you don't have to. All of these are free. Do watch this video because it's a good list. This is all stuff you can download and play around with over the summer. It's interesting stuff. I'll tell you what's not free. What's not free are these SIM platforms that I talked about before. Those are almost always going to be for pay, because this is the value of information, right? It's not just the data. The data is free, but kind of curating the information into a format that you can use. I forgot to mention this one company, and I bring up Varonis as an example of a SIM. So remember, SIM is Security Information and Event Management, however you pronounce that acronym or initialism. I only bring up Varonis. There are a ton of these out there, but a group of grad students did a presentation, CMIS grad students did a presentation last year on the best SIMs out there, and this is the one that they found that they recommended. And they presented their findings to a group of industry people, and they tended to agree. So Varonis is one I would just kind of put on your radar, just real world example. Oh my God, we're here. This is the end of the book. We've covered 12 chapters of information together. It's a lot of information. I would like to reinforce just the overall theme of CMIS422. How do you ensure good information security? You should be very comfortable with the answer at this point. Use some kind of security framework. What does the book recommend? The book recommends the NIST security framework to make sure you don't miss something obvious, you don't forget something. NIST is a good framework for creating all of your security checklists within your organization. Is it the best one? No. Is it the only one? No. There are plenty of them out there, but it's a very popular one, especially in the U.S. So how do you ensure good information security? Always use a framework. And that doesn't mean we're done with the class. Just because that was the last chapter, I still have some course wrap-up activities. We need to do the course evaluation together. Of course, that'll be online. You have another exam, and then I'll talk about jobs in cybersecurity and specific strategies for how to get a good job in cybersecurity, which a lot of people say is my best presentation. In fact, the only good presentation I do all semester. So you have that to look forward to. This will be the first time I'm doing that as a video, which will be interesting. But as usual, if you have any questions, shoot me an email, text me, chat me on Microsoft Teams. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Yeah, we're going to get through this semester together. I wish you all good health and stay safe, and let me know if I can be of any help to you.